Hand loaders, bullet casters, welcome back to my buddy's range. We are here today just having a great time, and I promised you that I was going to do a follow-up video with that Ruger GP100, that force and cone job that I did, because I want to see how well lead cleans up from a polished forcing cone. So I've brought here today, which you've all seen, and I have used so much of this Ruger GP100 and my little hand loads. 250 grain Keith style bullet. They're not high velocity. They're just reasonable shooting loads. So hang with me. Let's see what happens here. That's 5. Let's see if we can do a little one-handed single action. Little one-handed double action.
What powder are you using in that?
4.5 grains of bullseye. Two-handed single action. Obviously a little easier. So that's 20 rounds, and we're going to find out how that forcing cone turned out. I am excited to bring you my dirty old GP100 that you watched me put 20 rounds through. I had a few misses. I'm still pondering that, folks. It's because of the smoke. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. You saw all that smoke? So if I didn't hit every single time, it was the smoke. All right, folks, all joking aside, it was a great time. I just got those steel plates recently. They were a lot of fun to shoot. They worked out well, and it was just a good day. And I put 20 rounds through that GP100 because we've got some work to check. What did your teacher always tell you in school? Show me your work. Okay, so I showed you my work. Now we're going to see if I came up with the right answer. Because the point, if you recall and you watched those 2 videos where I explained the purpose of the forcing cone, and I also got kind of a wild hair up my tail end and decided I was going to do some polish work on it. And the polish work was an effort to help mitigate some of the lead fouling that would build up. Stands to reason. If it's a rough surface, lead will stick to it. If it's a smooth surface, lead probably won't stick quite as well, which will make it a lot easier for me to clean up and just enjoy the gun altogether. So here she is, unloaded, as you can see. And I am going to chalk this little gal up in the big mean orange vise, folks. Here she is, folks. Now, if you're squeamish, this is the time to squeam because the muzzle is pointed directly at you. However, you know this gun is unloaded. All right, so the purpose of what I'm doing right here is I just want you to see what kind of fouling is normal, and we don't really have fouling. So I guess what I'm really saying here is I want you to see what this gun looks like after it has been used. It's been shot with the cast that has a traditional bullet lube. And as we see here, and I'll bring you in for a close-up, the darkness around this cylinder, that is all bullet lube. Let's see if I can fix the lighting here. So this darkness that you see that's just built up and caked up, it'll wipe right off. It is nothing to be concerned about. That's just your bullet lube. And that's also a pretty good indicator of how well that lube is working. I'm going to bring you back some because what else I want to show you is right here. Look at the dark same circle that's kind of built up. This is what we referred to as a lube star. This is pretty much a sign that our bullet lube is sufficiently held up and continued to pump through till the bullet left the muzzle end. If you're getting a lot of leading towards the last part of the barrel and you don't see this lube star, then chances are your lube might just be insufficient for the barrel travel, but this is a pretty short barrel. Now I'm going to try to get a good shot of the inside of the barrel. I might be able to get an even better shot if I open up this cylinder. Let's see what happens. There we go. All right, folks, hold on. Hold on tight. Here we are. So what we're looking at here inside these lands and grooves is really great because this is nothing more than bullet lube and a little bit of powder that might not have completely burned. This is great. This is what we want to see. We're not seeing any lead built up in these lands and grooves. This is where you'll find it quite often if you have bullet sizing issues or forcing cone issues, barrel frame constriction causing your bullets to size down. So I just wanted to kind of take you through this first so that you'll get a pretty good idea of what everything ought to look like when it's healthy. Now, I am going to bring you now to the forcing cone. Here's our forcing cone, and as you can see, there is some lead fouling built up in there. And as far as I can tell, this is the only place on this gun where lead is accumulating. So you recall I polished this forcing cone, and she was a nice, pretty, shiny, maybe close to a mirror finish. And the hope here was that whatever lead accumulated in this area would be easy to clean up. Because here's the plan. We're going to give this revolver its normal regimen of cleanup that I usually do for what I normally expect to be a reasonably dirty gun. And the hope here is with that forcing cone being polished, that lead will just fall right off for us. Hey, we can hope, right? So let's give it a shot. I've thrown a little hoppies on this patch. It will help to get a lot of this lubrication that's still kind of in there off. Now Hoppies will pretty much just kind of melt it for us. It's pretty nasty stuff, but it works great. You got to use some good bullet lube, folks. And I'm just going to take this nylon brush. I use nylon brushes, but honestly, they're probably not the best choice for any leading issues. But I'm going to start with the minimal effort necessary in order to clean this lead out. We want to get this lead out of the forcing cone so, well, it just doesn't belong there. Now you might be kind of wondering, well, gee, Leadsmith, you've gone to all this trouble to find the correct bullet, and it seems like you've got a pretty good handle on, loading casts without any leading problems. So why is your forcing cone leading in the first place? That's actually a very good question, and I've got what I feel are some very good answers, and I am looking forward to sharing those with you. We're not quite there yet. There's still a little bit of lead, but I have what is my secret weapon. I've got some copper chorboy wrapped around a wore out ore brush. I think it's actually a 40 caliber brush. That's not so critical what caliber that brush is. We just really need it to hold this chorboy. Now this chorboy is solid copper, and it works great because it forms a tight seal, I guess if you want to call it, into the lands and grooves, and it's very abrasive as far as what copper is capable of being. And it's not going to hurt the steel. It won't hurt your gun at all. But it really does a number on lead. And I'm pulling a lot of lead off right now. You probably can't see it. It's falling right onto my mat. And I'll see here in a little bit if I can just kind of get you a shot of this lead that has come off of this forcing cone. And this is great. We're getting a lot done here. There's hardly any left, and you've seen that has been a pretty modest, pretty simple effort. I have not broke my back whatsoever. What I am going to do is see if I can kind of twist this copper brush in this forcing cone. And that twisting action, I'm hoping, will get rid of the rest of those little bit of lead deposits. Now what I had there wasn't that much to start with. I've certainly seen them get a whole lot worse. What happens for some people is that lead fouling gets so bad right there at the forcing cone that it starts to lock up the cylinder. It will cross that barrel cylinder gap, and that cylinder will not rotate. And that's part of the reason why they have, a specified gap that's supposed to be there. And if it's too small of a gap, something as simple as fouling can really lock up that cylinder and keep it from operating. All right, we've done a lot of rotating here. Let's see if we can pull her out and see what we got. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to prepare a couple of patches of oil. We'll just take another look after this patch runs through there. A nice oil patch really helps kind of clean things up. Let's see here. I'm wanting to say that we're actually there, and you've seen that this has been great, having that polished forcing cone, and it makes evenings after a range trip so much more pleasurable. So I'm just going to rotate this sucker in there a little bit more. Like I said, it's pretty aggressive but it's not harmful to the steel. We always got to keep in mind, what are we running through our barrel? We don't want to destroy a barrel, so think hard about the methods you use to clean. You know, if you have a forcing cone that you're struggling to get cleaned up, think hard before you get some kind of steel chisel or pick in there, because you will scratch it. And that can lead to the problem getting worse. Now, lead is going to obviously bind to a rough surface a whole lot tighter than it will a nice polished surface. So if we've sufficiently removed enough tool marks, which was the goal, and if we have done our due diligence to clean it up with that nice final polish, and I tell you what, it makes life a lot easier. Unfortunately, I do not have, before video to show you what the lead looked like prior to. So you can only take my word, I reckon, but it was kind of rough to clean up. Now, here's the irony here. I purchased the Lewis lead remover kit in order to help do this polishing job, because it has that forcing cone adapter. And it worked great for getting that cone polished. However, I could just as easily use that kit right now to clean it up. So there is some irony in this whole thing. However, who will this benefit? Why would somebody benefit from this? And as I told you previously, we're done, guys. As I told you just a moment ago, sometimes that leading is building up so badly that you are having problems with the gun even functioning right, and it could also be leading to some unsafe high pressure conditions. If you are experiencing that and you have determined that your forcing cone is at fault because of a poor cut, then yes, it needs to be cleaned up. What I showed you is just one method. And recall in that video, that adapter will only work for an 11-degree forcing cone. Unfortunately, there's a lot of revolvers out there that are 5-degree. So be very careful before you apply any of the methods that I taught you. Now I'm going to chalk this back up in the vise just so that you can see the work that we did. Here she is, folks. The lead removed beautifully. And I have this clean forcing cone that required very little work on my part. So where did the lead go? I'm going to show you. Here is all that nasty old lead that stuck around on that forcing cone. So you can tell there wasn't really that much there to start with, and it cleaned up great. As I said when I started this little project, hey, this is an experiment. I couldn't say this is for sure gonna work, but I was quite confident it would. I'm satisfied with the results. I got very little lead fouling buildup there in the first place, and what was there cleaned up pretty easily. So I give this, pretty much a thumbs up. And I am going to caution you that a job like this can go wrong if you're not 100% sure of what you're doing and the tools you're using to do it with. So before you jump in and attempt to polish the forcing cone, first, you need to know what angle it is. Second, you need to know that whatever adapter, whatever piece you're using, to lap that media with is the correct angle also. Otherwise, all you're going to do is damage your forcing cone. So if you have an 11-degree cone, you need to have an 11-degree adapter. 5 degree, a 5 degree adapter, 18, and so on. So keep that in mind. Practice due diligence and be careful. There's no reason to destroy your gun over this. Of course, there's plenty of gunsmiths out there that can probably do a pretty decent job for you, and I recommend that if this is not your sort of wheelhouse. So the question was brought up earlier. Leadsmith, why are you getting lead there in the first place? You're supposed to be keeping the gas behind the bullet. That's a good question, and I have some answers for you, and we're gonna go over that in the next video. So like, subscribe, because we've got more to discuss.